The alien princess said, "Mom, I want him." Her mother looked at her in astonishment. She was a human. The planet Zolaris glimmered in the light of its 3 suns. Towers of crystal spiraled into the sky, and the air shimmered with faint colors that humans could barely perceive. This was a world of elegance, power, and strict rules, especially for its royal family. At the top of it all was Queen Solara, a ruler known for her intelligence, grace, and sometimes terrifying composure. And beside her, always curious and unpredictable, was her daughter, Princess Lyria. Lyria had a habit of asking questions no one dared answer, and wandering into places that were strictly forbidden. She often said the universe was too big to sit in one room and obey endless rules. Her mother, Solara, sighed endlessly at her daughter's boldness. On this particular day, the royal palace was bustling with a rare event, a diplomatic visit from Earth. Humans, though considered primitive by Zolarian standards, had become important for trade and cultural exchanges, but most aliens looked down on them, treating them as charming but ultimately weak and unfit for anything important. In the palace garden, a maze of silver-leaved trees and fountains with water that danced in midair, Ethan, a human ambassador, wandered. He was tall but unassuming, dressed in a simple suit that seemed laughably outdated compared to the flowing, glowing garments of the aliens. His job was simple: observe, learn, and, most importantly, not make a mistake that could ruin relations. Ethan paused at a fountain, marveling at the way the water twisted in spirals before splashing back into its basin. A Xylarian child, floating nearby on a levitating platform, giggled and zipped past him, leaving him dizzy with confusion.
Gravity sort of behaves differently here, Ethan muttered to himself. Or maybe it's just me.
He didn't notice that Princess Lyria had been watching him from behind a tall silver bush. Unlike other aliens, Lyria wasn't interested in formality or rules. She was interested in people. And humans. Humans were fascinating. Lyria's bright eyes followed Ethan as he awkwardly adjusted his suit, tripped over an invisible bump, and reached out to touch the twisting water fountain. "Why is he so human?" she whispered to herself, unable to hide a grin. Her curiosity got the better of her. In a blink, she stepped from behind the bush, landing softly on the marble path. Ethan spun around, startled, nearly falling backward into the fountain. "Oh!" I'm sorry," he said, straightening up. "I didn't see you there." "I can see you just fine," Lyria said, her voice playful. "You're different." "And I like it," Ethan blinked.
Thank you? I'm
Ethan. "I'm Lyria," she said, floating closer, her long silver hair waving as if it had a life of its own. "You're human!" "Yes," he said, with a faint, nervous laugh. "The report said you already knew that." Lyria's eyes sparkled with excitement. "No, I knew humans existed, but I never met one. You're nothing like I imagined. You frown, you trip, you laugh at things that don't matter. It's delightful." Ethan scratched his head. Delightful? He wasn't sure if she was teasing him or complimenting him. "Both," Lyria said, leaning closer. "Come on. Show me more of your weird human ways."
Ethan hesitated. This was not what a human ambassador was supposed to do.
He was supposed to stay polite, observe, and leave the fascinating royal princesses alone. But somehow, Lyria's energy was contagious. He found himself smiling. I can show you, T," he said cautiously. "It's kind of my thing." "Humans like it." "Tea? Oh, yes. I've read about it. Tell me why it's supposed to be special." Ethan laughed nervously. "It's not special. It's just calming. You steep leaves in hot water. You drink. You talk. Maybe you think." "That's it." Lyria tilted her head, floating slightly above the marble path. "That sounds simple. But humans make it sound important." She clapped her hands together. "Let's have some then. I want to see you in action." Soon they moved to a small terrace, where Ethan carefully unpacked a tiny human tea set he had carried in his diplomatic bag. The other humans had laughed at him, saying no one would need tea in a palace with endless drinks available. But here, in front of the princess, it felt strangely heroic. As he poured hot water into delicate cups, Lyria's eyes never left him. She watched him stir, inhale the aroma, and take the first careful sip. Then she tilted her head. "You smile while drinking it," she observed. "Do humans really feel this way often?" Ethan chuckled. "Some of us do. It's a small happiness. Tiny, but real." Lyria floated closer, her voice soft. "Tiny happiness.
I like that. I
Want more." At that moment, a sharp voice echoed behind them. "Lyria!" "What are you doing?" Both of them turned. Queen Solara had arrived, her presence commanding and unmissable. Her silver robes shimmered in the sunlight, and her eyes, calm yet piercing, were fixed on her daughter. "Mother," Lyria said, still holding her cup, "I'm having tea with Ethan. He's human." Solara's eyes narrowed. "You what?" Lyria swallowed, suddenly feeling the weight of her mother's authority. "I like him. He's different. Clever. Funny. Human." Solara took a slow step closer, her gaze moving over Ethan. "He is a human, a primitive species. Why would you—"
Her voice caught.
She stared at him, bewildered. "Why do you care for him?" Lyria lifted her chin defiantly. "Because he sees the world differently. He notices things we ignore. He laughs at the right moments. He feels. And like that, I want him." Solara's mouth opened, then closed. She had expected many things from her daughter: curiosity, rebellion, fascination with the unknown. But this was beyond anything she imagined. "You want him?" Solara repeated, her voice trembling with disbelief. "You want a human? Lyria, they are not our equals. They cannot understand our ways. They cannot—" "Maybe they don't need to understand us," Lyria interrupted, her eyes blazing. "Maybe that's the point. They see what we've forgotten. They see what matters. And I want him." Ethan, meanwhile, froze, unsure how to respond. He had not expected royal approval or disapproval. He had not expected this level of attention from an alien princess. And certainly, he had never been wanted in such a dramatic fashion. Queen Solara turned sharply, her mind racing. Humans were always underestimated, always considered weak. And yet, looking at Ethan, she saw calm in his confusion, focus in his clumsiness, and a spark in his eyes that she had never seen in her own species. Perhaps, just perhaps, humans were more than they appeared.
Come, Solara said finally, her voice still tight.
"We will discuss this later. For now,
You will remain here, under observation." Lyria's grin widened. "Observation?"
perfect. I want him to show more of this human infringement act of coming. Charm." Ethan nodded, though a bit nervously. Sure. Observation. Understood." And so, in the golden sunlight of Zolaris, a human and a princess began a strange friendship. One that would challenge everything the aliens thought they knew about humans. One that would test the limits of curiosity, courage, and charm. And most importantly, one that would make Queen Solara question her assumptions about a species she had long dismissed as inferior. For Lyria, this was the beginning of something thrilling. For Ethan, it was the start of an adventure far beyond his simple human life. And for Xylaris, the first stirrings of a lesson it had never learned before. Never underestimate humans. As the suns dipped toward the horizon, their light reflecting off crystal towers, Lyria floated closer to Ethan. "Tomorrow," she said with a mischievous glint, "I want you to show me more. More human ways." Ethan laughed, unsure if he was ready but secretly excited. I guess I'll try." And Queen Solara, watching from a distance, whispered to herself, "This human, He may change everything. The next morning, the palace of Zilurus shimmered in the soft light of its three suns. Crystal towers reflected the colors of dawn, and the air hummed with quiet energy. Princess Lyria floated through the corridors, her silver hair flowing like liquid starlight. Today, she was on a mission. She was determined to spend more time with Ethan, the human who had captured her curiosity and perhaps her heart. Ethan, meanwhile, was pacing nervously in the royal guest quarters. His human mind raced. He had expected diplomacy, lectures, and polite conversation, not being wanted by an alien princess. "What do I even do?" he muttered to himself. "Do I sit, smile, bow, or just breathe?"
The door opened without a knock. Lyria floated in, her eyes sparkling like twin moons.
"Come on," she said. "Today we explore. You will show me more human ways." Ethan swallowed. Okay. "I guess, but what exactly do you mean by human ways?" Lyria laughed, a soft musical sound that seemed to echo in the room. "Everything humans do, how they think, how they live, how they see the world. You have magic we cannot understand, and I want to see it." Ethan blinked. "Magic? You make things work differently. You notice small things. You solve problems in strange ways. That is magic to us." Ethan shook his head. "I'm just normal." "Normal is boring," Lyria said, floating closer.
I like unusual.
I like humans.
Before Ethan could respond, the doors slid open again, this time with the stern presence of Queen Solara. "Lyria," she said, her tone calm but firm, "you must not overwhelm him. Humans are simple. They cannot keep up with our ways." "Mother," Lyria said, floating toward her mother and then back to Ethan with a mischievous grin, "he keeps up just fine. Watch." Solara's eyes flicked toward Ethan, measuring him as if he were some exotic artifact. "We shall see," she said. "I will be observing, nothing reckless." With that, the trio moved into the palace gardens. The gardens were vast, filled with floating bridges, twisting waterfalls, and plants that hummed softly when touched. To a human, it was almost overwhelming, but to Lyria, it was just home. "Okay," Lyria said, landing near a glowing plant that emitted tiny sparks. "Show me what humans do first." Ethan looked around, confused. I don't really know what to show." "Start with noticing," Lyria said, floating near a tree with silver leaves. "Tell me something interesting." Ethan squinted at the plant. The leaves shimmer differently depending on the sun, and they make a faint humming sound when the wind passes. It's subtle, but beautiful." Lyria's eyes widened. "You noticed that?" "Most of us ignore it completely. That is exactly what I mean. Humans notice things." Solara, who had been observing quietly, narrowed her eyes. "Perhaps," she murmured, "there may be more to them than I believed." Encouraged by Lyria, Ethan began to explore further. He pointed out patterns in the water fountains, the rhythm of floating birds, and the tiny insects that glowed faintly in the air. Every observation was simple, but it carried meaning that aliens often overlooked. "You see," Lyria whispered, "he understands the little things, and little things matter most." Solara watched him silently, her mind turning. Humans were always underestimated, yet this simple human, was showing depth that aliens rarely had. Could it be that humans were clever in ways her species could not even imagine? As they walked deeper into the garden, Lyria led Ethan to a small pavilion. Inside, the floor was covered with a holographic map of Xylarus's history. An intricate pattern of wars, alliances, and discoveries. Even alien scholars struggled to understand it completely. "Try this," Lyria said. "Make sense of it." Ethan hesitated. "Okay."
I can try, but I warn you, I'm not an alien scholar. Try anyway, Lyria encouraged. He studied the holographic map.
Humans had a different way of thinking, connecting dots. spotting patterns others missed, seeing problems from angles no one expected. Slowly, he began pointing out inconsistencies in the map, small details in treaties that had been ignored, missing links between events, and patterns in alliances that even aliens had overlooked. Lyria floated closer, impressed.
You see things we didn't.
That is human genius. Solara, who had been watching silently, now stepped forward. This is impressive. You noticed flaws that have confused scholars for decades. Ethan blinked. I just looked carefully. I don't know if it's genius. Carefulness is genius, Lyria said, smiling. And humans are good at it. That's why I want him. Solara sighed. I understand why you are fascinated. But this is only the beginning. You must see how he handles more complex situations. Humans are simple. They may fail when the stakes are high. Then we'll see, Lyria said confidently. He will not fail. The next test came sooner than expected. A malfunction in the palace's gravity system caused the floating bridges to sway unpredictably. Aliens panicked slightly, but Lyria grabbed Ethan's hand. Come on! Show me your ways, she shouted, floating across the bridge. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then focused. Humans were not naturally adapted to zero or low gravity, but they were adaptable, creative, and fearless when needed. Using his balance, quick thinking, and guidance from Lyria, he managed to navigate the bridge safely. Aliens watching from nearby were stunned. How did he do that? One whispered. He shouldn't have been able to. Lyria grinned, floating to Ethan. See? I told you, humans are extraordinary. Solara's eyes flicked from Ethan to her daughter. This human, he may be different. Perhaps humans are more than we thought. By the time the sun reached its highest point, Ethan and Lyria had explored most of the palace grounds. Ethan had tripped, stumbled, and occasionally been utterly confused, but he had also noticed patterns, solved problems, and charmed Lyria with his simple human perspective. Lyria floated beside him, laughing at one of his awkward moments. You are not perfect. You stumble, you fumble, but that makes you human. And humans are remarkable. Ethan smiled nervously. I guess I'm just me. That is enough, Lyria said. More than enough. Solara, observing silently from the shadows, realized something important. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that underestimation could be a mistake. They were clever, adaptable, and had a perspective that aliens with all their technology and sophistication could not replicate.
As the day ended, Lyria turned to her mother.
See? I told you. He is not like us. He thinks differently. He notices what we miss. And I want him. Solara looked at Ethan, then at her daughter, and finally sighed. Very well, she said quietly. But he will be tested further. Humans must prove themselves. Ethan, oblivious to the full weight of her words, smiled politely. I'll try my best. Good, Lyria said, grabbing his hand. Tomorrow we explore the palace archives. You will show me more human genius. And maybe even surprise everyone. Solara watched them walk away, feeling both apprehension and curiosity. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were underestimated. But perhaps, just perhaps, humans were the most interesting species she had ever seen. That evening, as Xylaris's twin moons rose and the sun set in brilliant streaks of color, Lyria floated to her room, humming happily. He is different, she whispered to herself. And I like different. Ethan, in his guest quarters, looked out at the alien city. His heart was pounding. I have no idea what's coming next, he muttered. But somehow, I think I like it. And so, the human and the princess continued their journey, one that would challenge traditions, test assumptions, and reveal the extraordinary power of being human in a universe that had long underestimated them. Tomorrow promised new discoveries, new challenges, and more reasons for Lyria to insist, proudly and boldly, that humans were truly remarkable. The next morning, the palace of Xyla was quiet except for the soft hum of hovering drones and the faint rustle of silver-leaved trees in the gardens. The suns were just beginning to rise, painting the sky in pink and gold. Princess Lyria floated through the corridors, excitement in her eyes. Today was special. Today she would show Ethan the forbidden palace archives. The archives were a place of mystery and power. Ancient alien knowledge, some over 10,000 years old, was stored there in holographic tomes, floating crystals, and coded machines. Even Xalarian scholars often failed to understand the full depth of the archives. Only royalty and the most trusted advisors were allowed inside. Lyria hovered at the entrance, her silver hair glinting in the early light. "Ready?" she asked, turning to Ethan. Ethan nodded, though his stomach was twisting nervously.
I think so.
I mean, I don't know what's in there. It sounds complicated.
"That's the point," Lyria said with a grin. "Humans are supposed to surprise us. Show us what your species can do." Before they could enter, Queen Solara appeared, her robes flowing like liquid silver. Her expression was calm but unreadable.
"Lyria," she said, "this is dangerous."
"The archives are precise. A single mistake could trigger protective systems." "I know, Mother," Lyria replied, floating closer to Ethan. "But I trust him. Humans are clever." Solara's eyes flicked to Ethan. "Clever or reckless? We shall see." With a nod from Solara, the doors to the archive slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with floating holograms, glowing glyphs, and levitating shelves of crystal tablets. The air itself seemed alive, humming softly as if aware of every visitor. Ethan stepped inside, eyes wide. "Oh, wow." Lyria floated beside him, her eyes shining. "Focus on noticing. Humans see what we miss." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped carefully. At first, he moved slowly, observing the patterns of the holograms, the pulsing glyphs, and the floating tablets. Everything seemed complex, alien beyond measure. But humans were naturally curious. Slowly, he began touching the floating glyphs, watching how they responded. "Careful," Lyria whispered. "Some of these are linked to defense systems. One wrong move could lock us out." Ethan nodded. Got it. Slow and steady. Hours passed as he examined the archives. While aliens often relied on brute logic or memory, Ethan relied on intuition, pattern recognition, and creativity. He noticed sequences in the glyphs that corresponded to events in Xalaris' history. He observed floating tablets that rotated at precise angles and deduced that they were actually keys to unlock hidden knowledge. "Look!" Ethan said, pointing to a set of interlocking symbols. "If you move these in this order, they form a map." "A map of connections we didn't see before." Lyria floated closer. "You're right! That's incredible!" "No alien has seen it this way." Even Solara, observing from a distance, frowned thoughtfully. "Impossible. Only humans could approach it like this." "Their perspective is unlike ours." As they followed the map, a holographic door slid open, revealing a chamber that glowed with golden light. Inside were ancient devices, floating energy orbs, and strange machines that pulsed with power. Even the palace scientists had been unable to understand these relics. "This is amazing," Ethan whispered. "It's like technology and art combined. But what does it do?" Lyria's eyes sparkled. "You figure it out." Ethan stepped forward, examining one of the devices. It was a sphere that floated above a pedestal, etched with alien runes. He rotated it slowly, noticing that it responded to touch in unexpected ways. Humans were tactile learners. He pressed a sequence of glyphs based on patterns he had noticed earlier. The sphere shifted, and a hidden projection appeared. A star map detailing unknown planets and resources, including paths that Xylarian scholars had never discovered. "Whoa!" Lyria breathed. "You Unlocked knowledge no alien has seen in centuries. Ethan shrugged nervously. I just looked carefully and tried a few things. I didn't break anything, did I? Lyria laughed.
You didn't just not break it.
You made it work! Humans are extraordinary! From a hidden observation chamber, Solara's eyes widened. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Humans, a species she had always underestimated, were solving problems that had baffled even the most brilliant aliens. Cleverness, adaptability, and curiosity, qualities humans had in abundance, were proving stronger than alien technology or brute logic. But then the archives responded. The central system detected unusual manipulation and activated a security protocol. Holographic barriers flickered into place and the floor shifted slightly. Warning: unauthorized access detected. A calm alien voice intoned.
Ethan froze.
Maybe I did something wrong? Lyria grabbed his hand. Stay calm. Humans stay calm under pressure. Using his human intuition, Ethan observed the patterns of the barriers. They moved in a predictable rhythm. He calculated timing, adjusted his steps, and guided Lyria through the shifting floor. Then he studied the holographic panels, noticing symbols that corresponded to the floor's motion. I think if I press these in this order, the system will recognize us as authorized, he said. Do it, Lyria urged, holding her breath. Ethan pressed the sequence. The barrier stopped, and the system paused, then accepted their access. The rune's light shifted from warning red to a soft, welcoming gold. Lyria floated up, clapping. You did it. You saved us! Solara, watching from above, whispered softly, almost to herself. A human outwits our defenses. Incredible. Ethan blinked, astonished. I guess humans can be clever.
Yes, Lyria said. Not guess know it.
You're amazing. They continued through the archives, and Ethan discovered more hidden patterns. Maps of Xylaris's trade networks, energy flows, and even cultural archives detailing subtle alliances with distant planets. He connected pieces of information that aliens had long considered isolated. Each discovery amazed Lyria, who floated beside him, her laughter ringing like bells. And yet, humans do it naturally. Even the Palace AI, observing silently, seemed to register surprise. Humans, it calculated, were not just a simple species. They were adaptable, intuitive, and clever, in ways the Xylarian logic could not measure. By evening, Ethan and Lyria emerged from the archives, exhausted but exhilarated. They had uncovered secrets thought lost to time and proved, in ways the aliens could not ignore, that humans had a unique brilliance. Lyria hugged Ethan tightly. See? I told you. Humans are extraordinary, Ethan laughed nervously. I just did what made sense to me. I didn't mean to impress anyone. You impressed everyone, Lyria said. Even Mother. Solara, stepping forward, nodded slowly. Indeed, you are not like we expected. Humans may be underestimated. And perhaps we have been wrong. Ethan looked at her, a mix of relief and disbelief on his face. Wait, you're saying I passed?
You passed, Solara said, a rare smile flickering on her lips. Humans are clever.
You are clever. That is, valuable. Very valuable. Lyria floated beside him, her eyes sparkling. I told you, Ethan. I want you. Not for your strength, or your skills, or your knowledge alone. For being human. Humans are remarkable, and so are you. Ethan blushed, still trying to process everything. I never thought I'd be praised by a princess, alien or not.
You don't get it yet, Lyria said, laughing.
This is just the beginning. Humans will surprise everyone. And you are my favorite example. As the sun set and the palace bathed in golden light, Solara stood silently, contemplating the human before her. She had seen alien intelligence, alien power, and alien pride. And yet it was a human, simple, adaptable, creative, and curious, who had solved problems that had confounded her species for generations. Perhaps humans were more than primitive. Perhaps they were extraordinary. Tomorrow, she thought, humans would face even more tests, and by then, perhaps Zelaris would finally understand. Never underestimate humans. And for Lyria and Ethan, tomorrow promised even greater adventures, challenges, laughter, and moments that would change not just their lives, but the way the universe viewed humanity. For now, they walked together through the palace gardens, hand in hand, hearts light with excitement. Lyria whispered softly, "You are human." "That is enough. That is everything." And Ethan, though exhausted, smiled. I think I'm starting to understand." The morning suns of Zelaris rose, spilling golden light across crystal towers and the shimmering palace gardens. Princess Lyria floated down the main hall with a glow of excitement. Today would be special. Ethan, the human who had amazed the princess and confounded the palace, would face his final challenge. Queen Solara stood at the grand balcony observing them. Her expression was calm but intense. Today would determine whether the human could truly earn respect, not only from the princess, but from the entire alien court. Lyria waved at Ethan. "Ready for today? This is your moment. Show them what humans can do." Ethan swallowed, feeling the weight of the palace and the gaze of the queen. He had already surprised aliens with his curiosity, observation, and ingenuity, but he had never been tested on this scale.
I'll try," he said.
"Try?" Lyria laughed softly. "No. Today, you will shine. Humans shine when they act with heart and mind."
Solara approached Ethan. She said, her voice calm but authoritative. "Today you will face 3 tests.
The first is strategy, the second adaptation, and the third is diplomacy. Fail any, and you will not gain full acceptance." Ethan nodded. Humans had faced challenges before, but this was like nothing he had imagined. Yet, he felt a spark inside him, a combination of fear, curiosity, and excitement. Humans thrived in uncertainty. "Good," Solara said. "Follow me." Test 1, strategy. They entered a vast chamber filled with holographic star maps and floating markers representing planets, fleets, and trade routes. The challenge was to reorganize Zelaris' trade network to maximize efficiency while avoiding conflicts. Alien scholars often spent months attempting such problems without success. Lyria floated beside Ethan. "See the patterns. Think like a human. Humans connect things differently. Trust yourself." Ethan studied the holograms. Instead of relying solely on calculations, he looked for relationships and patterns. He noticed which planets were often overlooked, where energy flow was wasted, and which alliances could naturally strengthen others. He moved markers around carefully. Each decision was deliberate. The holograms reacted, showing improved efficiency and harmony across the system. The aliens observing gasped. "Impossible," one muttered. "Humans see it differently." Solaris' eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Yes, different, but effective." Lyria clapped her hands. "See? I told you. Humans think differently, and that is exactly why they succeed." Ethan blinked.
I just looked at what made sense. I didn't expect it to work.
"Sometimes," Lyria said softly, "looking simply is enough. Humans shine in simplicity." The first test complete. Solara nodded. "Very well. On to the second test. Test 2. Adaptation." The second challenge took place in the palace's environment simulation chamber. The room could mimic any planetary condition in the galaxy, from icy storms to acidic rains, from low gravity to intense magnetic fields. "Survive and thrive," Solara explained. "You must demonstrate adaptability. Humans are fragile by nature. Prove your species' worth." Ethan swallowed. Humans were fragile, yes, but adaptability was their strength. He took a deep breath. The chamber shifted instantly. Ice formed on the floor, winds howled, and sharp crystal shards hovered around. Ethan stepped carefully, observing patterns in the wind and the ice. Humans were natural problem solvers. He used his environment, balancing on ice, sliding past obstacles, timing his movements with the wind, to navigate the chamber. Then the simulation shifted to low gravity. Ethan floated awkwardly but quickly adjusted. Humans had balance, ingenuity, and intuition that no alien could anticipate. He used simple tools in the chamber, repurposing them to stabilize his movements. Finally, the simulation ended. Lyria floated to him, her eyes wide.
You adapted. Every challenge.
Every shift. Humans are incredible. Even Solara, observing quietly, could not hide a rare expression of awe. Remarkable, she murmured. They survive where others would fail. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. I just paid attention, tried to think ahead. That, Lyria said softly, is exactly what humans do best. Test 3, Diplomacy. The final test was in the Grand Hall of Xylaris. Alien ambassadors from neighboring planets had gathered, some skeptical, some curious. Their task, Ethan would mediate a trade disagreement between two alien species with centuries of conflict. The room was tense. The aliens argued, voices echoing. Previous mediators, even the brightest Xylarian diplomats, had failed to resolve the dispute. Ethan stepped forward. He felt nervous but remembered Lyria's encouragement. Humans notice what others ignore. He listened carefully, not just to words, but to tone, gestures, and pauses. He asked simple questions that exposed shared interests and overlooked common ground. Perhaps, Ethan suggested, if both sides consider the flow of resources together, everyone benefits. And maybe a joint project would help trust grow. The aliens paused, astonished. No one had approached the problem with such clarity. Simple human reasoning, empathy, and observation worked where complex alien strategies had failed. Slowly, the tension eased. Agreements were made, compromises accepted, and for the first time a long-standing feud began to mend. Lyria floated beside him, her eyes sparkling. You did it! Humans not only survive and think, they inspire others to work together. Solara, standing above the hall, finally spoke aloud. Humans have qualities we never expected. Intelligence, creativity, adaptability, and now diplomacy. Perhaps we were wrong to underestimate them.
Ethan blushed. I
Just tried to understand them. I didn't plan to impress anyone. You did more than impress, Lyria said. You proved humans can change the galaxy in small but important ways. The HFY payoff with the 3 tests complete. The court gathered in the Grand Hall. Lyria floated forward, holding Ethan's hand, and addressed the assembly.
Everyone, she said, this human is extraordinary. He is clever, adaptable, and kind.
He sees what we ignore, solves what we cannot, and inspires what we never imagined. He is human.
And humans are remarkable.
Murmurs filled the hall. Aliens whispered among themselves, realizing they had underestimated humanity. Queen Solara stepped forward, her silver robes flowing. She looked at Ethan with rare respect. Ethan, she said, you have demonstrated qualities that no alien possesses in the same way. You are clever, adaptable, and insightful. You have earned my recognition and the respect of Xylaris. Ethan swallowed, overwhelmed. I thank you, Your Majesty. I didn't know humans could. You don't understand yet, Lyria interrupted, smiling brightly. Humans don't always realize their own strength, but today, everyone does. The court erupted in applause. Aliens nodded, some still stunned. But one thing was clear. Humans were no longer underestimated. Ethan turned to Lyria.
I never expected this.
I'm just me. And that is enough, Lyria said softly, squeezing his hand. Being human is enough to amaze the universe. Solara smiled faintly, her pride growing. Perhaps humans are not merely primitive. Perhaps they are extraordinary. For the first time, Ethan felt fully accepted, not just by the princess, but by an entire alien world. He had survived tests thought impossible, solved problems that had baffled centuries, and shown that human ingenuity, heart, and curiosity could shine brighter than even the most advanced alien technology. Lyria floated beside him, eyes full of joy. Tomorrow, we explore more. There's so much you can teach us. So much humans can do. Ethan laughed, finally relaxed. I think I'm ready for that. And Queen Solara, watching quietly from above, whispered softly, "Never underestimate humans. They are more than we imagined." As the sun set, casting golden and purple light across the palace, the princess and the human walked together, hand in hand, ready to face a universe that would soon learn the truth. Humans are remarkable, and the universe would never ignore them again. The story of one human, one princess, and one underestimated species had reached a turning point. Humanity had earned respect, trust, and admiration. Not through strength or firepower, but through curiosity, courage, cleverness, and heart. And for Lyria, Ethan was no longer just a human. He was extraordinary. The universe, it seemed, had finally taken notice.